Morning, Butler Acres students. This is Farmer Julia. I'm out in the garden this morning. It's kind of a rainy day, but it's that time of year. And in the winter, this is actually a good time for us to be taking care of our fruit trees. And so today I'm going to be doing something called pruning, which, you know, if you watch me at first, it may seem like it's hurting the tree. But this is actually a way to help the tree grow and stay healthy. So every year we take just some of its branches off and then kind of also prune them so that it will grow into the shape that we want it to. So I'll kind of show you guys what it looks like before, and then we'll give you an after shot, and I'll kind of show you how to make a few cuts on your tree. So it's winter time here in the garden, and maybe you've heard about how some animals go to sleep for the winter. Trees do that too, but what the word we use for that, when a plant is asleep for the winter, is we say it's gone dormant. And if you speak Spanish, or if you've learned some Spanish, maybe you know that the word for sleeping in Spanish is dormir or dormiendo. See how dormant, dormir have that same sound in them? So it means this tree is asleep right now. And since it's asleep, we can make these pruning cuts on it, and it's not going to hurt it. And then when the tree starts to wake up in the springtime, it will send energy and fluids and stuff out to these branches, and it will heal these cuts. And then that will actually make it produce more fruit in the springtime. So right now, I don't know if I mentioned, this is an apple tree. You can totally tell because of all the apples on it. Just kidding. This is the only apple I could find. Ooh. So when we prune, we use a few different types of tools. First, we use pruners. We use them for pruning. Makes sense, right? And they're just basically like a really heavy-duty pair of scissors that has a lock on them for safety. So if you want to unlock them, you got to squeeze the handles together and then move that little claw, and then the spring opens up. So we use the pruners kind of for the smaller cuts, and then we can use a saw for a larger branch if we need to. And then these are called loppers, which is just a big version of the pruners, and you hold them way back here, and it gives you a little bit more power so you can cut through something that's bigger. And then whenever you prune trees or prune any plants, it's a good idea to sterilize your tools. So we're spraying them with some rubbing alcohol to just make sure that if one tree is sick, that sickness won't transfer to another tree if we use the same tool. So yeah, we'll get started. All right, so when we prune our tree, we're telling it to grow into a certain shape, and that shape is going to help keep the tree healthy, and it's going to make it so that we can pick the fruit more easily. So in the general shape we want our tree to be is for it to have an open center, kind of like this, shaped like a drinking glass, like a goblet. And if you look at this tree, it has not been pruned yet. And do you see how a lot of the branches are kind of crossing over and kind of pointing into the middle, or some of these are going to grow straight up into the middle? So when we prune, one of the first things we want to think about is clearing out the center of the tree. So if it's nice and open in the center, then the air can blow through it, and that helps keep the tree disease-free and get good circulation through there. Also, if it has an open center, the sunlight can shine down into the center of the tree, and that helps the fruit ripen better. Another thing, we don't really want our tree to grow super tall. Do you see how most of these new kind of growths, they're pointing straight up at the sky? The tree is like, yay, sunlight, I want to go up there. But if we let that tree get super tall, are we going to be able to reach the apples? Not really. So that's the other kind of goal with pruning, is you want to keep your tree kind of nice and low so that you can reach up and pick the fruit. That's the basic idea. So can you tell the difference? Can you see which tree has been pruned and which one hasn't? You can see this tree has already been pruned. I just got done working on it. And you can see how the center is mostly open, so the sunlight could shine right down into the middle there. And you also see how kind of the branch is out like this instead of straight up in the air. So that way, when it keeps growing, it's going to keep growing out. So we can just reach up and grab the fruit off. Another thing I took off of the tree, if there are any branches that are sick, that look like they're broken or sick, I'll take those off. So when we prune, sometimes we're taking branches completely off. So we see that this one is kind of sticking straight up in the air. I don't really want my tree to grow that direction, so I'm going to say, okay, no thank you. So I'm just going to cut that right off at its main branch. But other branches, you know, I want to keep them, but I want to tell them to grow in a different direction. So do you see how this one is pointing straight up at the end? I don't really want it to keep going that way, but I don't want to cut my branch completely off. It'd be nice if I had a branch out here with some fruit. So instead of cutting it completely off, I'm just going to tell it to switch direction. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to make a cut part way up the tree. And we can kind of zoom in on this branch that I already cut so I can show you. Do you see those little bumps on that tree? Those are called nodes or growth nodes. And that is where new branches are going to grow out of this tree. And do you see how they kind of are all on different sides of this branch? So when I cut a branch part way up, I cut it above a node that's pointing in the direction where I would like it to go. So if I cut above this one right here, the new branch would grow that way. But if I cut above this one, it'd grow that way. So with this branch, I don't want it to go to the center of the tree, right? Remember, we want to keep our center open. I want it to go out. So I'm going to find a node that's pointing this way. How about that one? And I'll prune right above it. So next year, the branch will grow that direction. And so we'll keep going out and out and out. And you can kind of see where we've been doing this on this tree before. Do you see this cut? That was made last year. So last year the branch was probably growing like this. And we said, okay, good job growing, but we actually want you to go this way. So we cut it part way up above a node. And then the next year, that branch grew out there. And then you can see where we did this just last year. That was probably going straight up. And then we were like, nope, we pruned it. And then it grew out that direction. And then I'll need to prune this one again to make it go out. Make sense? So I was talking before about sometimes we take branches completely off and go back kind of to their main branch and cut the whole thing off. That's called a thinning cut. And then sometimes we cut branches partially up their branch above a node to tell it to go a different direction. And that's called a heading cut. So sometimes we'll take off larger, older branches out of a tree because as the tree grows, its shape kind of changes. And I think I'm going to take this one out because as you can see, the kind of end branches of this one and this one, these big branches on the either side of this, their end branches are kind of going in the same direction as this one. And if I take this out, it will kind of give more space for the sunlight to come in there. So I'm going to take this one out. I'm going to cut underneath it first so it doesn't rip off the bark. It's pretty heavy. I don't want it to fall and rip the bark off the bottom of the tree. And then I'm going to make a cut out here just because it's easier to get to. Then we'll take the rest of this off. And then we've got a nice smooth cut that the tree will heal up when it wakes up. So it might seem a little bit harsh, but this isn't like cutting the tree's fingers off or anything. It's more like trimming its fingernails or giving it a haircut. So I'm going to take another big branch off right here. Notice my holding hand is far away from the saw blade. I'm telling the tree instead of to go towards the other tree where it's really crowded, I'm gonna go out that way. And here the trees are all done being pruned. So those are our apple trees. Then over here we have our Asian pear trees, and you see they kind of are growing in a different shape than those apple trees. They're growing right up next to the fence, and this style of tree is called an espalier one. So it was kind of pruned when it was a baby so that it would have branches that kind of line up sideways along a fence. So espalier means along a wall in French. So I'll show you how I prune those here next. All right, I'm working on this espalier Asian pear tree. With this one, I want to mainly focus on cutting off branches that are going to stick into the pathway. That'll make it kind of hard to walk around this one. And then I'll also take off any branches that I see that might be kind of sick looking. Like you can kind of see this one, it sort of looks like it's rotted a little bit right there because this stump was left on there a little bit too long last year, so we'll cut that off. So with this espalier pear tree, you can also see where it has branches that are pointing straight at the sky, so I'll have to make some heading cuts on those, kind of like I started doing out here, so that it'll point out instead of up. And then there's also this issue. Looks like that branch got broken off or kind of lost some of its bark, so I may just have to saw off that top chunk. And there's what they look like when they're all pruned. You know, it's important that we don't take too many branches off at a time. Sometimes I'll see a big branch especially, that I'll want to take off, and I'll decide to wait another year because we don't want to take away too much. This isn't, it's kind of a cooperation with the tree. We want to make sure that we're taking care of it and not taking too much off. So that's why, and because we're using kind of some sharp tools, that's why this is a really important job to do with an adult. And I'm kind of bummed that I can't have y'all out here this year, but maybe next year you can come out with your class and we can work on this together and you can try out some of these skills. So thanks for watching.